The stage lights burned hot against the sea of faces. You could feel the air change, thicker, heavier, like the moment's 0L before a storm. Jonathan Roumie stood center stage, hands loosely clasped, eyes searching the crowd. His voice had been calm all evening, but now it carried a weight no one expected. "Mel," he said slowly, his gaze locking on the man sitting in the front row, "Jesus told me something about you." The words didn't echo in the hall, they seemed to sink, pulling every breath with them. Mel Gibson shifted in his seat. His usual confident half-smile faltered. "About me," he muttered under his breath, almost as if he didn't want the microphone to catch it. Jonathan nodded, and for a moment, he didn't speak. The silence was louder than applause. "I wasn't going to share this tonight," he continued, "but I believe I'm meant to." The audience leaned forward as if drawn by a string. Backstage, a crew member froze mid-step, sensing something unusual was about to happen. Jonathan took a breath, long, deliberate. He said, "You've been carrying something. A weight, for years, and he wants you to let it go." Mel's eyes flickered, betraying something between defiance and fear. "Jonathan," his voice cracked, then steadied. "You don't know what you're talking about." Jonathan stepped forward, closing the space between the stage and the first row. His tone softened, but the firmness remained. "I think I do." Mel tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out hollow. The crowd's energy shifted from curiosity to unease. Cameras in the audience caught the moment, fingers tightening on the armrest, jaw clenched, the faintest sheen of sweat along Mel's temple. Jonathan's next words seemed to strike like a match in a dark room. "He told me that if you don't let it go tonight, you might not get another chance." A murmur swept through the audience. Mel opened his mouth to respond, but no sound came out. His hand went to his chest, slow at first, then faster. Jonathan stepped forward sharply. "Mel." The air fractured with gasps as Mel Gibson's body pitched forward in his seat, collapsing to the floor. Chairs scraped, shouts erupted, and the lights seemed to blur. Someone yelled for a medic. Jonathan was already off the stage, kneeling beside him, his hand gripping Mel's arm. "Stay with me," Jonathan said, his voice urgent now. "You're not done yet." Mel's lips moved, faintly forming words Jonathan could barely hear over the chaos. It was only 3 words. But they changed everything. "I saw him." The auditorium felt smaller now. Not because the walls were closing in, but because the air had shifted. You could hear the creak of chairs as people leaned forward, every single person aware they were witnessing something unusual. Jonathan Roumie didn't move from his spot at the center of the stage. He held the mic loosely, almost carelessly, but his eyes were locked on Mel Gibson like a hunter who had finally found the animal he'd been tracking for years. Mel adjusted in his seat. His hands were clasped, his jaw tense. The overhead light caught the lines in his face, each one carved from years of battles both public and private. And Jonathan said, in a voice that carried not just across the room but into the chest of every person there. "Jesus told me something about you, Mel." Asterisk. There was no laugh this time. No shifting feet. No muttered joke from the back row. The silence was a living thing. Mel's lips pressed into a line. "You're not gonna," he began, but Jonathan cut him off. He said, "You're still running." Asterisk. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. "Running? From what?" Mel let out a short, sharp breath. "Kid, you don't know what you're talking about." But even in his protest, there was no strength. Jonathan tilted his head, eyes narrowing as though listening to something no one else could hear. "He says, you've been building walls for decades. That every time someone gets close, you lay another brick." Asterisk. Mel's knuckles whitened. "Don't." But Jonathan stepped closer to the edge of the stage. "And he says you can't hide behind the art anymore." Asterisk. The audience's breath caught. This wasn't about movies. This was about the man himself, the man the world thought they knew. Mel rose from his chair halfway, as if deciding whether to walk out or walk forward. "Who told you to do this?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. Jonathan didn't flinch. "The same one who told you that night, 20 years ago, that the road you were on was going to destroy you." Asterisk. Mel froze. The words hung in the air like a blade. And in that pause, the room felt the tremor, not of fear, but of recognition. This wasn't a guessing game. This wasn't a lucky strike. Jonathan knew something. Mel's eyes darted toward the floor. His breath came in shallow bursts now. You don't understand," he said, softer this time. Jonathan took a step closer. "Then help me. Help us understand. Because he's not done with you, Mel." But he can't finish what you keep locking away. Asterisk. Somewhere in the back, a woman quietly wept. Mel turned his face away from the stage, but his hands, they trembled. And when he finally looked back at Jonathan, there was no anger left. Only a man who had been caught with a truth too heavy to deny. Jonathan's voice dropped to a whisper, but it carried across the room like a shout. He says it's time. Asterisk. Mel's throat tightened. Time for what? Jonathan closed his eyes for a moment. Then, almost reluctantly, time to tell them what you saw. Asterisk. The audience shifted in their seats, sensing the weight of what was coming. Mel swallowed hard. If I do that, everything changes. It's supposed to. Asterisk. Jonathan replied. And just like that, the air in the auditorium turned electric, charged with the feeling that the next words spoken would either break the man apart or set him free. The air inside the auditorium felt heavy, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Jonathan stood just a few feet away from Mel, eyes locked, voice low but cutting through the silence like a blade. Mel, Jesus told me something, he said. A murmur swept through the audience, half disbelief, half awe. Mel didn't move, his chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. What are you talking about, Jonathan? His voice was hoarse, his eyes narrowed but glistening. Jonathan's gaze didn't waver. He said, you've been carrying a weight you were never meant to carry. The words hit Mel like a punch. He staggered back a step, gripping the edge of the podium for balance. People in the front row leaned forward, sensing they were witnessing something rare, something unscripted. Mel tried to speak, but his throat closed up. The lights above seemed to dim, or maybe it was just his vision clouding. Jonathan took a slow step closer, the microphone catching every word. He told me, Mel, you think you're building his kingdom, but you've been building walls instead. The crowd gasped. A few people exchanged worried glances. This wasn't a friendly chat between two celebrities anymore, this was something raw, unfiltered, and dangerous. Mel's hands began to tremble. You don't know what you're saying, he whispered, almost to himself. Jonathan's tone softened. I know exactly what I'm saying. He said you've been living like you're still on that cross, punishing yourself, but he already paid that price. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mel's jaw tightened, his breath shaky. The man who had stared down Hollywood, fought critics, and defied public opinion now looked small, vulnerable. And then, Mel's knees buckled, his body tilted forward, the microphone squealing as he collapsed onto the stage floor. A collective gasp ripped through the audience. People shot up from their seats, some screaming, others frozen in shock. Jonathan dropped to his knees beside him, his hands shaking as he pressed them against Mel's shoulders. Stay with me, Mel, stay with me. The stage crew rushed in, but the sound of the audience faded into a dull hum. Mel's lips moved faintly, as though he were speaking to someone no one else could see. His eyes flickered open, glistening with something more than pain. Jonathan, he whispered, I saw him. Jonathan's own breath caught in his throat. What did he say? Mel's eyes locked on his, fragile but certain. He said, let it go. The lights above seemed to grow warmer, almost golden. Jonathan felt an inexplicable calm wash over him, even as medics surrounded them. The audience sat frozen, half convinced they'd just witnessed something supernatural. But deep down, Jonathan knew, whether it was a vision, a breakdown, or a miracle, Mel Gibson would never be the same after this night. The auditorium is silent, every eye fixed on the stage. Jonathan's voice trembles at first, then grows strong, carrying the raw emotion of every word about faith and redemption. Some wipe away tears, others close their eyes, lost in the melody. As the last note fades, there's a heartbeat of stillness, then the room erupts into applause, people rising to their feet, clapping and cheering through tears. Jonathan lowers the mic, his eyes shining, knowing this moment will stay with them forever.